Hi, Laura.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday. Almost at the end of the week.
I know, Little Friday is what we like to call it here,
Yeah.
but lots of things happening this week. We missed the great updates that came out Friday of last week, so excited to talk about some of the very interesting and exciting things taking place across the social media world. And really to kick it off here, very hot off the press, but Threads has finally released the long-awaited API that they've been talking about for third parties. This is sort of the initial beta release. Hootsuite, one of the release partners that they've gone with a few other social media management platforms as well. So now people all over the world, businesses too, can schedule their Threads content, plan it out in advance as they're managing that. Obviously, quite a big update for the network. I think this will lead to a lot more content on the network. Unfortunately, it doesn't support engagement through third parties yet, just publishing, which I think is an interesting decision on their part. But would love to get your initial thoughts here, Laura.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this just because I think it could pose a good opportunity to increase usage, right? And have some of these brands that maybe historically have been sitting on the sidelines, kind of seeing, how Threads goes, like long term. Um, there's really only been maybe a handful of companies that I've chatted with that have Thread strategies and are using it. So I'm really eager to see if it increases some of these other companies and now they can use existing workflows that they have for all of their other social content. So it makes it easier to actually start maybe posting on Threads or thinking about building out that strategy now that you don't have to go to the platform natively and publish this the content there. So I'm excited to see if it picks up usage and people start using it. I think it will, but we'll see.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's interesting too. Like Thread still hasn't adopted any of the advertising methodology that a lot of other platforms have. And from what I've heard, it's really focused on growing engagement, growing their user base. So really a great opportunity. And I'm sure the algorithm will reward you too if you get active there, become a content creator, really drive in their community. So I think very rarely do you have these opportunities. I know TikTok blew up right around the pandemic. Now we have Threads as one of these new opportunities where if you can establish yourself early on, it can create some amazing new wins for a company from a social media perspective. Continuing on here as well too, lots of other exciting updates to talk about. Instagram releasing some updates to their DM experience. This is an update I love to see as well too. I've noticed this on mobile text even, where now people have the ability to edit Instagram messages you send within the first 15 minutes. So if you catch that typo, if you're like, oh, maybe I want to delete this message that I didn't mean to send, luckily very easy to be able to hop in there and do that. In addition to that, some different UI experiences and updates, some things like being able to pin chats, change some of the themes as well too, just to make the more pleasant overall user experience. Curious to get your take, Laura. Have you ever sent that message where you're like, oh no, I misspelled there as there or something like that to make those quick fixes?
Totally. I think we've all been there, and so having an edit feature makes it really nice to just go in and be like, okay, let me tweak this message a little bit. Maybe send it too soon. So I think that aspect will definitely be really helpful for a lot of people. I'm also very excited about the pinned conversations feature because I think, as a social media manager, sometimes you send the brand account different like ideas when you're scrolling through your own personal feed and you're like, oh, this is a cool concept. I want to reference it later. So now you could maybe pin your own conversation to the top of the brand feed if you want to like reference that later. Or I also think about it from, if you're a social media manager, maybe going in natively and DMing different influencers, maybe you pin certain conversations to the top of your feed when you're trying to like follow up with somebody. So definitely some really cool ideas or use cases for that you could think about, but definitely helpful if you're like trying to communicate with somebody or regularly communicate with somebody. And for some brands and some influencers out there, your DM list gets very long. So it makes it easier to find some of those conversations.
Yeah, that's a wonderful take there too. And I never really thought of social media managers doing that since I haven't managed a brand Instagram account myself. But you just described it that way. I'm like, I absolutely send all the different memes or the recipes I see come up or anything that I'm like, oh, I want to save it. I'll send it to my partner. So I could absolutely see lots of people doing that on their brand pages too. In addition to this update, too, there's a lot of interesting things happening on the Instagram side. I think one other thing that's been top of mind for me has been Instagram investing a lot in their desktop experience. I don't know if you saw this as well too this week, but they've launched analytics on the desktop experience. They've made that a lot smoother. And for me, that's also been interesting to see some of the changes and decisions that Instagram is making. I remember using the desktop experience 6-7 years ago, which was the most headachy type of thing for Instagram, and a company of that size you would think would have built something better out. And now they're starting to improve that a lot from a usability standpoint overall. So lots of very exciting things happening in the Instagram world. Shifting gears here to our favorite platform, the one we're coming to you from here today. LinkedIn coming in with some algorithm changes, being able to support what's called suggested posts. And essentially with this update, what they're doing from a platform perspective is content that's posted, that's live, maybe it's 6 months, a year old, but still really good high quality content will be resurfaced into people's feeds and shown to different users here. Very common on other social networks. We see this a lot on channels like Facebook, on YouTube as well too, from a suggested content perspective. And now LinkedIn starting to get in this game and sort of dip their toes into a lot of types of content that other platforms have been doing for quite a while. I like it. I think it's good in the sense that for like the really great content that has that staying power, rather than people having to repost it, they'll be able to just have that continue to have life. I also personally am not like overly joyed about it too, because what's fun about LinkedIn is seeing people get creative, share new takes, share new ideas as well too. So curious to get your thoughts on the changes here, Laura.
I agree. There's a bit of a rose and a bit of a thorn. So I think just starting with the thorn, the thing that reading through it, I was a little bit iffy about is with LinkedIn, there's so many industry trends and updates that happen, so quickly in all of our industries. And so I wonder in terms of these suggested posts, if someone's looking for a particular topic, if they're going to get old content that's now out of date, even if it's very valuable and knowledgeable, maybe things have changed on that particular topic since someone posted it. So I wonder how they're going to take into account, and maybe it's AI scrolling through and seeing, is this post still relevant or is it outdated? So I can see it working really well for evergreen content. But the one thing with the trends, I'm not sure if someone will get suggested old trends that are now out of date. But I think it is a really interesting idea to help, different creators or different LinkedIn thought leaders be, more visible to additional people by getting those suggested posts. So it could be a really helpful way to grow your audience. I've been chatting with a lot of different customers this week about thought leadership and how to be a thought leader in your industry. So I think for those individuals that are trying to break into that online, this could actually be a really helpful tool for you. But I'd almost think about it like trying to provide advice and value rather than, trying to make a post go viral, and thinking more, I don't know, evergreen content related. But trends are so important. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Absolutely. I think one of the special things too about LinkedIn and like creator community here is that it is a lot different than a lot of other networks, where people who may have not the biggest followings have very keen takes that make it what it is special, that people can share their opinions and their experiences overall. And my hope for this, if LinkedIn's listening there, if anyone's out there, is that this feature doesn't sort of create this homogenous mix of content from different creators, but still fosters that environment of sort of small people or just people in general sharing their experiences and their life through this platform as well. So I think one we'll keep an eye on, and I'm sure there'll be lots of tweaks and adjustments over this. With LinkedIn's growth in followers, it's no surprise too that these changes are coming to help encourage and create more engaging experiences for users with that best performing content. So yeah, just an interesting update all around. Onto the question of the day here. I think one I'm very excited to chat about or to chat with you about, to Laura, is around YouTube from a brand strategy perspective. Why I find this so fascinating, often we think about a lot of the content channels like Twitter, like LinkedIn, very text-based, very like sort of standard from an audience and an engagement standpoint. And a lot of companies do have a YouTube channels, but the type of content tends to be hit or miss sometimes and quite different and varied. You can see great success. I've worked with some customers that create these videos that get hundreds of thousands of views around sort of educational content that may not fit in the norm of what they'd be publishing across other channels. And would love to get your take as you think about sort of this unique but not unique social network, like how to approach building out a YouTube strategy as a brand.
Yeah. So I think, kind of like you mentioned, a lot of brands use it as almost like a content sort of media hub, repository. People can go and, check out like behind the scenes of an event recently that was hosted. And, anyways, it's really used a lot as a media library, but I think there's such a cool opportunity for brands to leverage YouTube, because we know people go to YouTube to learn something new, and they're going to be more eager as well to watch a longer form video. So I love the example you gave about education. I think that's such a fantastic use case for YouTube. There's lots to learn about your industry. There's people that are eager to dive into the trends or learn about just sort of basic concepts related to your industry. So being able to teach your audience something new is always a good one. I was chatting with a customer earlier this week, and they are in sort of the food services industry. And so it's like, how can you give value back? Post some recipes, right? Teach your audience how to cook with, some of the things that you're selling. So I think it's thinking about who you want to provide value to or what your ideal audience would be. But instead of maybe having that inward focus of, we're at this event, or this is how we sort of handle sustainability, or like how we handle, all of these things internally, think about how you can teach someone something new. Because that's why people go to YouTube to learn, right? Like if you're ever stuck on a topic, like if your car breaks down, you might YouTube how to fix that particular part of your car and follow step-by-step instructions. So I think just really thinking about that education piece is really, really key for sure. But also thinking about the resources that you have handy, right? Like, are you outsourcing to an agency to help you with these? Are you maybe having someone internally do them? Do you want it to be more high production value? Do you want it to be more vlog style? So also thinking about like how you're going to create these videos, because like you said, they are separate from other social networks. You might take snippets of them and post them on other networks, but like the actual long form video itself, it takes some time to edit and put together, and maybe script it a little bit if you need to, or at least sort of think about sort of the topics that you might cover in that video. So resourcing and like how you're going to produce this video is also something you want to take into consideration too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great reminder, and we talk about this all the time about how each social network has their own individual audience, and taking the time to talk to your audience, find out what motivates them, find out what they're interested in, testing out content ideas too can lead to very interesting discoveries. I think a great example, like one of the healthcare organizations I work with, one of their best performing videos by like 100x all the others is how to prepare for your knee surgery, which isn't necessarily like content geared towards a specific audience in their community, but still content that's relevant to their community, but relevant to the broader audience, and was something that people were looking for from an information perspective to what you were saying. I think another great example too, when brands think about this, is that YouTube doesn't just have to be one single channel for your brand. Hootsuite does a great example of this from a content perspective, where on YouTube we have our main brand channel where we host a lot of our case study videos, our demos, and our walkthroughs from a platform experience. But we also have a channel called Hootsuite Labs, which is a very much our creative channel where we get to have a little bit more fun, be a little bit more playful. Our team, where scientists, coach, they do social media experiments. They really dive in and play into that overall. I think it's a great example, again, of testing out new ideas, being able to be creative and explore in a way that you may not traditionally think about from an approach perspective. outside of that, any other advice for brands maybe who haven't started a YouTube channel and are getting started when it comes to creating their first videos and getting out there?
Yeah, I think it's just thinking about, what topics you want to talk about. Like, is there a series that you want to start? I think like one-off videos is just where we kind of want to stay away from on YouTube almost. So even thinking about, the Hootsuite example, there's the labs, right? Where it's all of these different tests that they do. That's a series, and there's going to be consistent content that comes with that. Demos, things will always change and evolve, and you might want to, refresher to learn something new about Hootsuite. So going there to get that information is always relevant. So thinking about something that, isn't just a one-off video, but more so that you can keep the conversation going around. And it doesn't have to be like a really narrow topic. It can be quite broad. But I think like the first thing is really strategizing what those sort of pillars would be for your YouTube channel. And then thinking about that resourcing and how you create said videos, who might be in them. Like I think with the Hootsuite videos, one thing that really stands out to me is that there's usually quite a bit of consistency about who appears in them. So sometimes it's helpful to have a bit of a social host or a couple social hosts that hop in those videos and are kind of the face of your brand on YouTube. And that way, when someone's scrolling through their sort of list of folks that they subscribe to, they can immediately tell that it's, a Hootsuite video or whatever your brand, is. So it gives that recognition as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also a great reminder as we start to wrap up here today too, around whether you're proactive on a channel or not, people will still be talking about your brand. You can remember countless times where I'm looking at some sort of product, whether it's a pizza oven for outdoors or a new software product or something, where my gut is to hop onto YouTube and start searching and seeing what that looks like in the real world from an experience standpoint. And there's lots of people who will take advantage of that. They'll create the content because they know there's demand. And if you're a brand out there and want to own the conversation and own that story, being proactive on a channel like YouTube can make such a big difference there as well too. So lots to think about. I think that's the joys of social media, is that there's never ending opportunity, and it's just being able to take the time, take advantage of the easy ones, and be smart about the more strategic ones as well too.
For sure.
On that note, I think a great place to end this week. Thank you again, Laura, for joining us here. Lots of very exciting guests we have lined up here for the rest of March and April, and exciting things going on in the show as well too. So looking forward to all of that, and wishing everyone a wonderful rest of their week.
Thanks, everyone.